If you compare the Munich Jewish community to the Berlin Jewish community, as these events were happening, 1919 and 1923, first of all, did the two communities work together to try to combat the anti-Semitism that was on the rise? And how were the communities different in how they approached that issue?
Well, I think we have to keep in mind the differences a little bit more than maybe the commonalities. First of all, the Munich Jewish community was about 12,000 people, and the Berlin Jewish community about 170,000. So it's a huge difference. But there was another difference, and we often forget that when we talk about Germany. Germany was composed of so many different states with very different cultural backgrounds, and there was a historical, I would even say, animosity between Prussia and Bavaria. Now, Berlin was the capital of Prussia, Munich, the capital of Bavaria. And the Prussian Jews felt Prussian, and the Bavarian Jews felt Bavarian. And even among the Zionists, one important document I came across once, interesting one, was how a Zionist from Berlin characterized a fellow Zionist from Munich, saying, "Oh, those Bavarian Zionists, they're breathing too much Bavarian air. They're so Bavarian." And the Bavarian Jews spoke their own dialect, sometimes not so even easy to understand for the Berlin Jews. So there were differences. Of course, when it came to anti-Semitism, they would see eye in eye. They would try to fight it together. Let me actually go beyond Munich and Berlin. When there was anti-Semitism in the streets and threats to expel East European Jews from Bavaria, the attempts to defend the Jews of Munich went way beyond Munich. One of the problems in Munich, or beyond Berlin also, one of the problems in Munich was that those authorities the Jews could turn to had become infiltrated by anti-Semitism. Definitely the courts. You could see the very lenient sentences for the right-wing extremists. The police, for a while, the police chief of Munich was an ardent follower of Hitler, an early Nazi before 1923, and others remained in the police force who were known as anti-Semitic. The church, well, the church wasn't pro-Nazi, the Catholic Church, we talk about Munich, but they, as we know, the very important cardinal, Archbishop and Cardinal Michael Faulhaber, had very deep traditional anti-Jewish sentiments. And so had the conservative politicians who were now the leaders. So they couldn't turn to them. Whom did they turn to in order to avoid the expulsion of East European Jews? They turned to the consulates, the Austrian consulate, the Polish consulates. And interestingly, they were the only ones who helped, not because they loved the Jews so much, but they didn't want them to be expelled to their own country. So they said, if you expel our citizens from Bavaria, we will expel Bavarian citizens and German citizens to Bavaria. And that's what stopped it. But interestingly, and that connects the Berlin-Munich, or completes the Berlin-Munich connection, they also appealed to American authorities, because there were many American Jews whose roots were in Bavaria. Some of the very important Jewish families in America. And some of them had direct connections to the State Department. Some turned actually to the Secretary of State. The Secretary of State wrote to the ambassador in Berlin, "What's going on in Germany? Are Jews really like, and what's going on in Munich?" And the ambassador of Berlin wrote to the consul general in Munich. And that's where we see an interesting connection, how because of the outcry of some of the American Jews of German descent, the American diplomats in Germany became active. And by the way, in some of their internal correspondence, you can also detect anti-Semitism within the State Department, saying, the Jews, they're all socialists and they're foreigners, and some of the arguments the right wing in Germany uses. But overall, they try to also come out against any kind of violent anti-Semitism.